Hey everyone, welcome back to another modern native bushcraft video. Today we're going to be teaching you how to turn one of these pine trees into a whisk, like this. Alright, so here are the main tools that you're going to need for making your whisk. First up, you're going to need a small saw, and that's for cutting down the bits of wood that you need. A pocket knife for cleaning up the wood. Here we've got a drill and a drill bit, and that's for boring a hole in the handle part of the whisk. I've got a bit of pine pitch glue here, that's for gluing it all together. And then at the end we've got a bit of sandpaper there to smooth it all off. And this is a beeswax and olive oil mix which we'll use to seal the wood at the end. Here are the ingredients you're going to need to make the pine pitch glue, which you use to glue it all together. There are three main ingredients, and they are the pine resin or pine sap, a charcoal which will crush into a fine powder, and some kangaroo poo or similar which will also crush up to add to the mix. If you want it to be a little bit more supple, then you can put a little bit of beeswax in there as well. And we'll show you later on in the video how to put this all together to make the glue. The first step to making your pine tree whisk is to gather the materials that you're going to need. So as you can see here, towards the end of the limb of the pine tree, it already grows in a whisk shape. So all you need to do is walk around a few limbs until you find the piece that speaks to you best, and then just trim it off ready for cleaning. I like to leave a little bit of a gap there, so while I'm trimming it, if there's any snapping, it's not going to damage the whisk, and we can clean that off later. The next step after that is to start peeling off all of these leaves. So now we've got all the pine needles off the whisk, the next step is to scrape all the bark off, and I simply use my pocket knife and just scrape it along the wood. And that's probably the easiest way to get the bark off, I've found. So now that we've gotten all the bark off the whisk, the next step is to start trimming it down to the shape that you want. So all you need to do is sort of pinch it together with one hand until you get roughly the shape of whisk that you want. And then holding it against the central stalk, just sort of select a point where you've left about maybe an inch and a half of limb past where it's pinched, and that is what's going to be pushed into the handle, and that's going to hold it all together. So once you get to this point, you have a choice about what you want to do with the handle. So the easy option is just to pinch it together and then tie some twine around the central stem. That will give you a very suitable handle. Once you're happy with the length of your handle for your whisk, then just tie off the twine, and essentially all you'll do next is trim it up, seal it up, and your whisk is done. So that's the easier, quicker version. But for this particular one, like I mentioned, we're going to be grabbing the piece of wood and we're going to be sticking the end of the whisk down that to make a more solid handle. So for the solid wooden handle version of the whisk, you need to select a piece of wood that you like to use for the handle. It needs to be wide enough to fit all of those limbs squished together inside there. You want to try and find the very center of your handle there, and then get your drill bit in there. You need to do this bit rather carefully so that you don't split the wood. And depending on what type of wood you're using, you may need to drill a pilot hole and then get wider and wider as you go until you've got the width that you need down the center of your handle. So I'm just going to carefully drill this hole now. You want to make sure that you're going straight down the limb so that you don't pop out the side or split the wood. So as you can see there, we've bored a really nice hole down the center of that piece of wood, and that is going to become the handle of our whisk. So we just hold them next to each other. It goes roughly that deep. So we're just going to trim the central shaft to about that length there. So once it's all cut to length, it's easy. The next step, all you do is just poke it in so that they're all going into the handle, and then push it in until it stops. So to make the pine pitch glue that we're going to use to glue it all together, it's quite simple. You just need three ingredients really. You've got the pine resin there, the charcoal ash from a hardwood tree, and then some kangaroo droppings, but you can use something like rabbit droppings or something like that as well. And all you do is then melt it all up in your little pan here, mix it all together, and that'll make when it cools, it'll harden into a really strong glue. We're also adding a little bit of beeswax there. That just makes it a little bit more supple and a little bit more sticky to work with. So get your pan over some heat. This is probably easier done on a kitchen stove because you control the heat a bit better, but this flame should work fine. And you just want to heat up that pan, not too quickly, because you don't want it to catch on fire or burn. Pine resin is quite flammable, so you need to be rather careful. Once your glue is all melted and really well mixed together, then you can start to transfer it into your whisk to hold it together. So once you've aligned your whisk as you like it, we need to fill in those holes. Get your pine pitch glue and just carefully pour that into the hole. Push it down as best you can. You want to fill all those gaps. You need to keep your glue warm, or hot rather, while you're doing this, otherwise it'll harden before you're ready. Once you're happy with the amount of glue you've got in there, then you can start to tidy it up, clean it up. Again, you want to do this fairly quickly before the glue hardens too much. When it's starting to harden up and you're happy with how it looks, you can just let it cool until it's hard. So the next step after that is basically just to trim it off, sand it all down, do any artwork to it that you like, and then your whisk is ready to go. But now we have finished gluing the whisk into the handle. I've trimmed it all up and sanded it all back. It's ready to be sealed. So we're just using, like I mentioned, this beeswax and olive oil mix. You can use any oil really. How easy is that? Turning a pine tree limb into a kitchen whisk. Really easy, really quick, and really awesome outcome. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out our other rewilding content at www.modern-native.com.au. Also check us out on our socials. See you next time.